What's up, you hamburglers? Mark with Kardavox Academy here, and today we're talking about Darko. We're talking about their new release, Rampage, which I'm very excited about because if you've seen the channel before, you know that I think Tom Barber is quite a talented vocalist. I like what he does. I like that he kind of breaks the mold of certain metal tropes. He kind of reinvents things, in my opinion, and I really respect that in a genre where a lot of things, due to the high amount of distortion we use, can kind of sound samey. I feel like when you hear Tom, you know it's Tom. But before we get into all that, if you're new here, my name is Mark. I am a vocal coach, full-time vocal coach, teaching people how to do crazy cool noises safely and efficiently. So, you know, things like or, you know, other metal sounds that they might be interested in. I'm a metal vocalist myself. I'm in a band called Kardavox. I've been doing vocals for about 14 years-ish. I don't really remember exactly when I started. But we've got some albums out. Check them out if you want to. They don't really sound like this, but, you know, there's gurgling on there, so you might enjoy them. And what I do here is I take the reaction format, I turn it to a little bit more of an analysis. I pause, I talk about vocals, and it's a lot of fun. So if you like the content, like, share, and subscribe. We're putting more videos out per week now that things have finally calmed down a little bit at Casa de Kardavox. Every time I say that thing, though, things get crazy. So I gotta not say that anymore, and I gotta not jinx it. But let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Let's check out Darko US Rampage official visualizer. Here we go. That's a good place to pause. Like I said, I pause around here, so get used to it. One thing I want to mention. I'm not going to go too into detail because I might just be imagining it. In this song, he said "brothers, sisters." Didn't he do that in Insects, or was it Dragon Chaser? I don't know if there's like a recurring thing here, but I'm really interested in it. So, first and foremost, like Tom's already doing a bunch of the stuff that I really enjoy about his voice here. One thing you'll notice is those like mid screams, growls, whatever we want to call them, that we heard in the opening. Notice how they didn't have a lot of that low end that we usually associate with metal vocals and metal growls. Even fry vocals, which can have just as, you know, big a breadth of tonality as other screams, right? But can be a little bit harder to make sound like thick and deep, right? We usually associate mids and lows with like that, you know, kind of rounded, like those big, like cavernous dark tones. What I love here is that he thins it out intentionally, right? Now, I don't know if this is just kind of how he's found to do it, or I've never spoken with him, not like for a reaction video or anything, or if he has spent, he spent time like really refining it. But one of the things I love is that it sounds like, I'm trying to think of a way to say it that doesn't sound like a slight, because I actually love this sound, but it sounds kind of like not flat. It sounds hollow yet bright at the same time. And I think that's one of the reasons I find it so intriguing, is because usually when we have hollow sounds, we get those hollow sounds from big spaces, and big containers generally create lower, richer tones, right? It's like if you blow across a little pipette versus blow across like a gallon, you know, or 2 liter, 4 liter, I don't know, jug, right? You're gonna get those lower tones. But with him, he's got like that, but it's almost like he's putting it like out of the side of his mouth, which is how I would go about it, you know? Like it's got kind of that sound, which is really cool. I love the rapid fire highs. We're going to talk about the rapid fire highs in a bit. One thing that I find also really intriguing about his voice is that he's able to maintain a lot of endurance with his voice, but his false chord vocals tend to be a little bit lower compression, right? Now, when I'm saying lower compression, what I'm talking about is there's a little bit more airflow going through there. You know, we can do high vocals, and we'll get more into technique later, but we can do like false chord vocals, more traditional false chord vocals. And we can do them in such a way that there is as little air leaking out as possible before switching techniques. And that allows us to go for longer, right? So a lot of people, they'll start with like a really breathy false chord. That's where they start. And then over time, You get those more compressed, more controlled tones. Same with highs, right? Ha, 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 yeah, big, ah, right? He lets a little bit more air through, but he doesn't seem to lose longevity, which a lot of that can come from strategic breathing, knowing when in your count you're going to take that quick little inward. But let's keep listening. Let's keep going. But keep that in mind. Notice how a lot of his fundamentals are very. He rocks very strong fundamentals and uses them to create very interesting tones, which I think is really cool. Let's keep going. So I want to talk about that real quick. This is the reason I'm pausing it here is because this is a question I get from a lot of students, right? So one of the things that happens with students when I teach them is they will, they'll get the basic false chord or the basic fry. Cool, that's amazing. We love it. We'll start working on songs together. They pick a song and we go through it, and they inevitably run into this. They say, Mark, and I say, what? And they're like, switching between these vocal styles is really, really difficult, because if you're trying to get through a song start to finish as if you were performing it live, obviously you're not doing like multi-track recording, right? So one thing that I always mention and that we work on together, and that I do also go over this. We have an e-course, False Chord Fundamentals, on KardavoxAcademy.com. So if you're not able to get in one-on-one lessons and you want something a little bit more self-guided, you can check out our e-course where I give you all the basic information you need to make really good false chord mids and lows. But one thing we talk about is utilizing resonance first to move through different spaces in our voice. A lot of times what'll happen with new vocalists is they'll run into situations where they think they have to drop or lift their larynx. They think they have to twist or squeeze, right? A lot of times people think they have to squeeze their voice and literally like push their jaw out and point their lips down to get lower. And that's a very interesting way to think about it, because it shows that they're thinking of high pitch, low pitch, high scream, low scream is based on position. Even if they consciously know that that's not correct, subconsciously they're thinking about their voice very positionally. But we know, of course, that a high note is a high note, not because it's physically high in space, but because it has a higher frequency than a lower note with a lower frequency, right? So one thing we can do is we can just utilize mouth shapes, and he does it really well here, right? Like if I take a very simple, the downside of having a mustache is that if it is pointing at your nostril, it is doing nothing but tickling. Cue the cocaine jokes. It always happens, I know. Anyway, if I take this, right, if I have the like a basic compressed, more like a retinoidal sound, right? A lot of times if people want to move that lower, they're going to go, or they're going to move down a pitched scale. Now, to be clear, associating our metal vocals with pitch and scale can be a really, really, really valuable way to help us understand vocal tract positioning. But sometimes it can confuse the student into thinking that they literally have to go for like lower notes to hit more voiceless tones. And if you're going for tones that are really not pitched, it's not going to help you very much, right? So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about my voice shifting forward and filling up my mouth. Now, how is that going to happen, right? Think about your voice like water. Think about your voice like water. Right, I've got a constant stream of water coming out because I've got even airflow. My breath support is awesome. So the air coming out of my mouth and the voice that's being supported by that air is a nice steady stream. No waver, right? Well, if the opening is really big, it's just going to all dump out. I'm going to run out really quickly, right? So one way that I can let my voice fill up my mouth is just by closing the opening. Now, what did we talk about earlier? Bigger containers generally are going to create lower tones. So all I have to do is make this movement, right? Now I got to burp. What the hell's going on? Right? So I'm here. I did drop my pitch. Let me do it. There we go. It's funny to do this sometimes. Sometimes I'll do this with students who are like just brand new to music in general, right? I'll ask them which note is lower, which note is deeper. E, ooh, and they usually say the second one, but it's the same pitch, right? So if we do this with distortion, I'm going to make the same movement. Ow, 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 right? I can create space in the front, or like I did at the end when it got much deeper, I can create space with the back of my tongue, right? Now, one caveat here is if your larynx does drop a little bit, it's okay. Just don't shove it into your chest, you know what I'm saying? Let's keep going. Ooh.
What the fuck?
Okay, I'm going to pause it there because I actually want to go back and pay attention to this section. So I know I'm pausing it in kind of a big part, but I'm doing that on purpose. I love the ambience that's going on in the background. Very cool. I want to talk about a couple things. One of the first things I want to talk about is right there. It was kind of mixed back, right? And it had some effects on it that made it sound kind of distant. I think it was just like something. I don't do a lot of like audio production, so I know my way around like a little bit of EQing. Now I got a fucking whisker in my mouth. What the hell's going on? Get out of here. I know my way around like an EQ just enough for like editing the audio for this channel. That's it, right? But my point is it sounded very far away, but it was that like more breathy, airy false chord distortion that is kind of, in my opinion, very iconic of his voice that he's not using so much in this song. But it's like this very like, instead of like our pitchless false chord, right? Hey, it's much more of a pitched false chord. Hey, brothers, sisters, right? It's got that pitch in there, and it's really I'm just moment of transparency for personal preference. I tend to like metal vocals where I can't hear any note. Now there are some exceptions to this, right? Like I think Zelly of Paleface has a really cool like pitched scream. Matt Honeycutt, usually when there's pitch in a scream, I like it to have that like hardcore like beatdown vibe. But I think Tom does a really interesting voice here. It's kind of got like this very loose, very relaxed, yet very, very intentional and pointed sound to it that I really enjoy. So it's like this very, and it's interesting because to get this, we would do things with false chord that are not like traditionally right. They're not dangerous. They're not going to hurt us, right? But they're generally what people want to move away from. And, it's this like breathy, like, there's voice underneath it. Hey, hey, hey. It's got some of that like head voice space in there, like, hey, hey, brother, sister, my turn to play. Right. And generally speaking, when people come to me with wanting to learn false chord, they have a sound that they want to get rid of, and we do. But this sounds so channeled and so controlled that I actually really enjoy whenever I hear Tom screaming and he does that. I'm like, yes. And I think that's one of the things that I like about his voice and metal vocals in general. If you've ever heard Kardashev, you know that I sing normally, I sing a lot. I'm very comfortable with my voice, but I love the freedom of harsh vocals. And that's why, as a preference, if I had to only scream or only sing for the rest of my life, I would go harsh vocal all day, every day, because there is so much freedom. And like, really, like, how do you know you're doing something right? Well, it is comfortable and it doesn't hurt your body and it sounds cool to you and the people around you. That's it. So do whatever the hell you want, right? And I love that he's taken this sound and really refined it and made it sound cool. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I forgot. Y'all want first time listen live reactions. You got to deal with me forgetting what the heck I was saying. That's the rule. All right, let's keep going then. But I do want to go back a little bit because this ambience behind the instrumentation here is just gorgeous. Gorgeous. I really like the way he's delivering those high vocals. Also, like compositionally, this song is really bouncing a lot between like harsh dissonance and more melodic ambient sections with like, and both of those things are happening behind like the metal chugs, right? But it's happening very well. Just a point of preference, I wish the ambience was a little bit more forward because I can tell what they wrote is super pretty and I want to hear it more. But when I listen to it more objectively, I'm like, okay, I can tell why they put it there. Makes sense. You don't want it to dominate. You want it to just be a flavor, a little seasoning, right? Yes. So I love the way he's delivering his high vocals. This is going to sound weird, but it almost sounds like he's like licking them out, right? Like for all you dirty minded people. Yeah. Go ahead and giggle. I'm trying not to giggle, but it's kind of a funny way to say it, right? But it's like he's licking the vocal out, right? He's got his high, right? It has that like, and it sounds really cool, actually. Now, obviously, we're not new. I'm sorry. What I should say is like chewy, like, almost like masticated vocals are not anything new. But I like that he's kind of held it for a while and he's just using it to kind of like interject into the song here and there, right? And his high tone is very like, he goes back and forth between the less compressed highs and the more compressed highs. Like these highs, they sound a lot more like, that more TV staticky, like, right? And that paired with the sounds really neat. I like that. Not a whole lot to say with it other than that. Oh, no, I do have something to say. One thing that you can do if you're trying to do high vocals, and you can pair this with false chord or fry, it does not matter. Right? Well, okay. I got a whole thing I have to say about false chord highs, but I don't have time in this video. But a lot of the distortion that we make with high vocals, not always, but much of the time, actually comes from the folds in the back of the mouth, right? You can actually see, if you can create high vocals, like, this, which is traditionally called a false chord high vocal. But if you look, you can actually see like your uvula will pull up and the palatopharyngeal folds will come together and they will do this in the air. Now, of course, those aren't the only tissues that are creating distortion, but you can see it. You can visually look at it, right? You have to drop your tongue so it's not going to sound as high, right? It's going to sound less like, yeah, and more, yeah. But it's really cool to look at. You should do that. Like shine the flashlight in your mouth and look in the mirror. It's a lot of fun. But basically, when we're doing this, when we're doing a lot of these high vocals, we are compressing the airflow, utilizing the pharyngeal space. The pharynx is the space in the back of the mouth, and we can actually close that up. We need it to be able to close and get smaller when we swallow food, right? And so if we do that while keeping the glottis, the vocal folds themselves, relaxed, we can create a lot of really high tones really easily. But the trick is learning how to manipulate just that space, so we can have like a right. Anyways, let's keep going. I said I wanted more forward ambience, and they delivered. Very cool. Hey, shout out to Sambic C Visual. This was a very cool visualizer. I liked it. I want to talk about one more thing before we wrap up here. So we did something really, really interesting. Oftentimes, when we think about our harsh vocals, and this makes sense for when we start, we think about three distinct entities that have no crossover: lows, mids, and highs. And that's not true. In fact, not only is it not true, but we can take them and we can gently move them into each other's space, right? We can let them visit each other's homeland here in order to create some cool sounds. Now, what do I mean? If you are a clean singer here, this is gonna kind of sound like I'm talking about mix voice, right? And I guess in a way, I am sort of. But like, let's take your head voice, right? Let's take like a falsetto, right? And you don't even have to do it very good. We can just ooh, ooh, right? Ooh. Now I can drop that down and sort of flirt with the top of my chest voice. Now, it's not a sound that I would sing with very much, right? Right? Likewise, I can take like a chesty tone here. Hey, 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 right? So I can sort of like start moving into each other's territory, right? Now, it's going to be a slightly different mechanism as far as like the phonatory source, the sound you're creating, but your vocal tract shape is going to be doing similar things. A band that does this really well, well, let me talk about what I'm talking about first. So I can take like a high vocal and I can drop it down into a mid. Oftentimes people's mids are based on their lows or their lows are based on their mids, but you can flip that, right? You can flip that convention and you can make your mid based on your high. And a band who does this really well that I think is cool, I don't know if they're doing this on purpose, but is a band called De Weg naar Freiheit. The Path to Freedom or The Road to Freedom, I think it's called. Great black metal band out of Germany. Skepsis Part 2, awesome song. Whole album's great. Anyway, but if I can take like a high vocal, my brothers, sisters, my brothers, my brothers, my brothers, sisters, why so serious? You can create some very like monstrous sounding tones, and he was kind of flirting with that space there too. Just this is an area. Remember how earlier I was like, yeah, you know, learning like pitch control and things, and you know, head voice, chest voice can be really helpful for metal vocalists. This is an example of where it would really come in handy to be able to know your way across the scale and things like this. Anyway, that's 25 minutes of recording time, and that's probably pretty good. But yeah, Rampage was pretty dope. I liked it. I really liked a couple of the other releases from Darko. I can't remember the name of the albums. But really their whole discography is really cool. This song seemed like a little bit of a return to form, which is not bad because like I loved Insects, I loved Dragon Chaser, I loved all that stuff. But like Oni and Death Mask Part 2, maybe I'm getting confused. Point is, they've got a bit of a diversity of sound, and if you like this song, you should check out their whole discography because there's different stuff to listen to. That's all I'm trying to say. So good job to the guys in Darko. Excellent work. Great song. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Means a lot to see the channel grow. And check out False Chord Fundamentals if you want to learn how to make cool false chord noises. Stuff like that. That's all I have. Thank you so much for your time. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.